Okay, so all over my timeline, I've been seeing people do the halfway to Halloween content. And you know, if you follow me, you know we love some Halloween content. So let's do a quick, like, horror-esque comic review on a comic I've been loving lately. So like a couple months ago, I seen advertised on here somebody reviewing Blacula. And if you know, obviously, it's from the iconic blaxploitation movies, Blacula. And I've been really watching a lot of them lately. Pam Grier always been my hero. So that shit ain't nothing new. I remember watching this with my grandma around Halloween time because she thought he was cute, and I was like, girl, jump scare. So before I ordered this off of Amazon, I rewatched the movie just to jog my memory and get the world and the campiness and the character. This book, Blacula, Return of the King, goes into a little bit more of depth of who Blacula was before he was turned into a vampire by Count Dracula. Yes, that count. And as we know, Blacula was originally an African prince, Prince Mamuwalde. I'm gonna say Prince M because y'all know my speech impediment, it will sound like I'm chewing on marble. Or I'll just call him Prince Mamu. But not only does this story give us a more in-depth look at who he is, but also it's very much so a continuation of Blacula. And it also shows through the new characters the residual trauma and chaos that he left over from the killing spree he went on in the 70s. Because in ways, the community is forever changed by what he did in Los Angeles in the 70s, along with the exposure of the supernatural. Okay, so pretty much the story begins in present day. So the book pretty much starts with like a homeless man in an alleyway, you know, dark, brooding setting. And I'm guessing he's just loitering around, so the police is like, keep it moving. And of course, the cops are being assholes. He's like, move it along, buddy. Hardworking people are around here. Meanwhile, they're telling him to move, and they just in their cruise car eating donuts. So the old man's like, yeah, I'm moving to God knows where, but I'm moving. And of course, he makes the wrong turn, and he finds himself in the same alleyway as a vampire. So this old guy, he's like, and who are you? And she's like, just a friend. First of all, never inquire when you're in a dark alley with somebody mysterious appearing out of nowhere. Honey, the only name you would know is the back of my head. And then he's like, she tells him his name is Caesar and stuff like that. And he's like, how do you know my name? And it's like, boy, you ask too many questions. And pretty much she takes a bite out of crime. This girl sitting up here talking about this nigga a month. So then we fast forward to 6 months later, and we meet our main character, the heroine of this story, Tina Thompson. And she's like an investigative reporter, always looking for supernatural urban legends and shit like that. And she starts to realize that a lot of people are becoming up missing in these specific urban communities. But it's really hitting the Watts area hard. So she's on her Nancy Drew shit, and she's like, let me go investigate. And that's when we get to see a dual narrative being told at the same time. Because Tina knows with people going missing in a dozen, it's some supernatural shit at hand. And in a specific community, there's a legend of a black vampire that plagued this community during the 70s in Los Angeles. And as we know, every legend is either forged through either heroics or tragedy. So now we gotta go to hell to visit Blacula. Okay, so now we with Blacula, aka Prince Mamu, in hell. So after he died in the Blacula movie, this is where his soul went, of course. And I know there's a sequel to Blacula, but we're just speaking about Blacula, the first one. So what we notice from this passage is every decade, he'll go up to the Dark Lord Satan, don't want to say his name too many times, and he asks him for freedom. And also remember, Blacula, he still holds himself with such a higher stand and such a regalness because he is African royal. What you say, you can take the crown from the prince, but you can't take the prince from the crown. And see, like as we see in this one, he's like, my request is for you to release me from this place, Lucifer. What I've become is not of my choosing. And for such reasons, I do not belong here. And the devil's like, you're correct, but bitch, this is hell. So in this dark realm, everything which is unfair serves as which is right here. Pretty much, no means yes and yes means no. And the devil loves to see somebody beg just to deny. So he's like, pretty much, see you next year, same time, same place. So now we go back to Nancy Drew. So yeah, she's like an investigative reporter. Her topic tonight is they're going to investigate the history of Blacula, the legendary figure that haunted the Crenshaw area in the 70s. And her goal pretty much for this is to find the truth behind the legend. Because with her thorough research, she realized the Watts area, which she's in now, is where a lot of the mysteries is happening again. Shit looks awfully familiar because, history does repeat itself. And she feels like either Mamuwalde, Blacula, has been reborn or he has risen from his grave, if he exists at all. So she's like, let me go searching through these empty houses in this neighborhood that people have abandoned. Because yes, going through dark houses in the middle of the night is such a smart idea. But hell, when you want to get the scoop, you do whatever it takes. So she goes into this empty house, and there's a group of kids in it. And he's like, bitch, what set is you from? And she's like, bitch, I'm from Sherman Oaks. And she get out her pepper spray. And he's like, I'm just asking questions. I want to know what's going to bring a valley girl to the jungle this time of night. And she's like, first of all, my name is Tina Thomas, and I'm investigating the mystery of Blackula. And he's like, my name is Kross, and you, my friend, are in the right place. And now since they meet, we can go into Blacula'S origin. If you've seen the movie, you already know it. So it's Nigeria, the 1780s. The Abani elders are seeking assistance from any and all world leaders to help stop the slave trade, which was ravaging the continent of Africa. As heir to the throne, Prince Mamuwalde had to meet with the leader, which unfortunately brings him to the shores of Europe. And I'm sure y'all like, bitch, why Europe? Ain't that where a majority of the chaos is coming from? True. However, he goes to Eastern Europe where a specific count lives, and that is Count Dracula of Transylvania. And he ironically was open to assisting his people. And so you know how I always tell people follow your intuition? Because Mama even said when him and his wife got there, he was like, there was a chill in the air unlike any other he has ever felt. And then again, I'm thinking like maybe because he lives in Africa and it's always like a tropical climate there, and he's never really had to feel the cold. But then again, you know, we're setting the story. But also this world is so different from him because, you know, he's in Eastern Europe, Transylvania, and, you know, a lot of their castles are made of stone and stuff like that. Nothing like the motherland where it's like lush green and all that stuff. So it literally does look probably like a more gothic, dark world. And, you know, in the beginning, they thought, you know, the Count's welcome was very warm. And even though Mama could feel the warmness from the Count, he knew that they weren't alone and he never felt safe. You know when you could feel cordial around somebody but you don't feel safe? And this is just me, but as a kid who was always into the theater, there's this scene in Into the Woods where Little Red Riding Hood says, I know things now, many valuable things that I hadn't known before, but nice is different than good. I butchered those lyrics, but you get it. But as the dinner progressed, Mama was asking the Count for help, and he began to feel mocked. And they soon become clear that their journey was a waste of time. However, their fates will forever be altered. And of course, the Count starts to mock him for him believing that he would help the dark people. And the Count and all of his henchmen attack Prince Mamuwalde and his poor defenseless wife. And that brought great shame onto his spirit. And that day forward, Prince Mamuwalde was never the same. And as the prince is losing himself, he remembers how he was informed that throughout Eastern Europe, it was believed that Count Dracula was actually Vlad the Impaler, one of the most, as y'all know, the most brutal and evil tyrants from history. But he dismissed it because his people were in need. But either way, Prince Mamuwalde's fate was sealed. And after Count Dracula bit him, he put him in a coffin and nailed it shut. And as he was sealing him in there, he put the nickname or the moniker of Blacula upon Prince Mamuwalde's head that has haunted him and stuck with him to this very day. So now that Tina's met another group of people who are into like the supernatural true crime community, they're like, girl, what you know about Blacula? And she pretty much tell him that he haunted the Crenshaw area in the 70s and caused a lot of chaos. She was like, and the case was closed. Mamuwalde's dead. Then she's like, recently the cases started happening all over. And the boy's like, you believe that shit? And she's like, yeah, why wouldn't I? And he's like, because I know firsthand. And my question is, well, bitch, how do you know firsthand? Well, let me tell you. Back in the 70s, Kross's grandmother was a taxi cab driver. And see, this scene right here behind me is a scene straight out of Blacula, the 1970 movie, where Blacula's leaving. He gets hit by a taxi cab, and this sassy, like, taxi cab lady gets out and like, nigga, can't you see where you going? And long story short, Blacula attacks her and turns her into a vampire. So this scene right here is this scene from the movie where he hits the cab, the yellow cab lady, Juanita, gets out and she's like, can't you see where you... And he pretty much makes her a popsicle and sucks all her blood. And then later on in the movie, she comes back in the morgue as a vampire. So now that y'all know this, we realize that the boy Tina meets is this lady's grandson. And it's confirmed because he says he did my grandma both, which is another way to show the generational effect of Blacula's murder spree and how there are people who still had to survive after all the people he took. And the boy tells Tina, them losing his grandma broke his grandpa's, but his grandpa raised his mom and then also him, his grandson. And he tells her every year they went to the grandma's resting spot to, you know, bring her flowers. But this year, when all this murdering and new shit starts happening, her tomb is empty. And he's like, and then right after that, his grandfather came up missing. And then y'all remember how in that abandoned house that Tina meets Kross in, there's the other kids there too, which is why they thought it was a gang. And we discovered that these are a group of kids who all been affected by Blacula's infamy. And they're all like, your boy is responsible for everything that's been happening around here. So yes, to you, this is just an interview, clickbait and what you want to interview of, but there are real people suffering real consequences from his action. And the group tells Tina, we gonna kill him and maybe you can help. And you see her face, she's like, I was just looking for a story. But of course she ends up being down because she's the main character and he's evil, or so we're led to believe. And now since they have like each other to depend on, the hunt for Blacula can truly begin. Meanwhile, in Prince Mamuwalde's grave, his soul escapes from hell. And now that he's finally awoken again, he remembers how he awoken one time before in America in the 1970s, the film Blacula. But then in that original narrative, he saw his reincarnated wife and that was where he was going at. But now there are more questions that need answers. The movie told us the fate of his wife. He saw that since he was in America, his land and his people were conquered. Slavery, which was the subject that he launched his journey, had prospered, and Dracula won. But not for long. And he erupts from his grave into the world of the living, finally realizing he doesn't need another person's permission to be free. Freedom is his right, and so is revenge on Dracula. And he will get it.